History class, am I right? It can feel like it's all just names and dates.
Yeah.
But not today. Buckle up, because we're about to rewind to this guy, Marien Ngouabi, third president of the Republic of Congo.
Oh, yeah. Now there's a story and a half.
No kidding. We're talking coups, Cold War conspiracies, a mysterious death. It's got it all.
And talk about a visual story. Have you seen that YouTube video essay going around about him?
That's what we're diving into today. But before we get into Ngouabi's story itself, let's back up a bit.
Right, gotta set the stage.
Exactly. So imagine the Congo before colonialism. We're not talking about some European power-grabbing land, not yet. You've got established kingdoms, their own systems of power.
It's crucial to understand that context. It's like Ngouabi's whole story, his worldview, it's a reaction to the forces that were already shaping Congo way before he was even born.
Totally. But then, boom, late 19th century enter the French. Colonialism takes hold.
Yeah, and it's brutal.
Brutal is putting it lightly. We're talking massive exploitation of resources, rubber especially. You can imagine the impact on the Congolese people.
Happens all the time in history, sadly. These outside forces swoop in, take what they want, without a second thought for the people who are already there.
And of course, it's not like everyone just rolled over. There was pushback. Like this guy, Andre Mitsuwa. Talk about a visionary. He stood up, challenged the system.
And you can see how his courage, that fight for his people, it kind of echoes in Ngouabi later on. Fascinating how these threads connect over time.
Absolutely. But then, just as things are heating up, World War II throws everything for a loop.
Talk about a global shakeup.
Suddenly, the power dynamics are shifting, and colonies everywhere, Congo included, see a chance.
Yeah.
Independence.
You can practically feel the hope in the air. But freedom's rarely served on a silver platter, is it? Especially when you've got big powers still pulling strings in the background.
And you know what they say about independence? It's not always sunshine and roses. Especially when it comes to who actually gets to hold the reins, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's like you might kick out the old rulers, but the whole system. That takes a lot more than declaring independence.
Exactly. And in Congo's case, you've got these figures vying for control. Guys like Jean-Félix Chikaya, Fulbert Yulu. Big personalities, even bigger ambitions. And of course, France is still lurking in the background. They haven't given up on their interests just yet.
It's like a game of chess, really. Everyone's making their moves, trying to come out on top.
A high-stakes game, that's for sure. But for now, let's shift gears a bit. Zoom in on our main man, Marien Ngouabi. Picture this. Colonial Congo. And this young guy is coming of age. He joins the military, trains alongside some future big-shot politicians. I mean, you can't make this stuff up.
It's almost like destiny, right?
No.
And it's not just any career path, the military. Especially in a newly independent nation. It's like a breeding ground for ambition, for shaping how you see leadership. Those years definitely left their mark on Ngouabi.
No doubt. But here's where things get interesting. Ngouabi starts butting heads with the president at the time, Masamba Dibat. Seems like Masamba Dibat was getting a little too comfortable with power, especially when it came to the army. And Ngouabi, well, he wasn't having it.
Remember those principles we talked about? That independent spirit he kind of inherited from earlier generations? This is where they collide head-on with the reality of power.
Talk about a recipe for conflict.
Absolutely. And it all boils over in 1968. Ngouabi ends up getting arrested. And his people, the Mbochi, they're not going to take that lying down.
Protests erupt.
Exactly. The whole situation is volatile. And Masamba Dibat, already weakened, finds himself on shaky ground. And you know what happens when power vacuums appear.
Someone's going to fill it.
Exactly. And in this case, it's Ngouabi. A coup unfolds, and boom, at the age of 30, he's the president of Congo. Think about that for a second. The hopes, the anxieties of an entire nation all resting on his shoulders.
Talk about a meteoric rise to power.
And a massive responsibility, especially given the global landscape. The Cold War was in full swing, remember?
Yeah.
So now, not only is he dealing with internal pressures, but he's got to navigate this whole other level of complexity. The Soviets are beckoning with their brand of socialism, but then there's France, still a major economic player.
Caught between a rock and a hard place.
Precisely. And Ngouabi, as shrewd as he was, he knew he had to tread carefully.
And tread carefully, he did, but he also knew he had to assert himself. So he starts consolidating power, right? Creates a single-party system, starts clamping down on any dissent.
It's the classic dilemma, isn't it? How much freedom do you sacrifice in the name of stability? It's a question that still haunts us today, and it certainly haunted Ngouabi.
No kidding. And this YouTube video, it doesn't shy away from those tough questions. They get into some of the darker stuff, too. Like, Ngouabi was convinced his rivals were using witchcraft against him.
Wow, talk about paranoia.
Right. And it gets wilder. They even show these clips of him, like, publicly displaying the bodies of people he had executed.
It's a chilling reminder of how brutal that era was.
Absolutely. Makes you think, was this guy just paranoid? Or was it calculated? Was it all part of some strategy to keep his opponents guessing?
It's hard to say for sure looking back, but one thing's for sure, it created this atmosphere of fear. And unfortunately, things were about to get even more intense.
Because on top of all the internal drama, the economy's tanking, whispers of corruption are spreading, and things are getting violent.
And remember that whole Cold War backdrop we talked about? Congo was smack dab in the middle of it. I mean, they had resources, a strategic location. They were a pawn in a much bigger game, whether they liked it or not.
And right when it seems like things couldn't get more volatile, tragedy strikes.
Yeah.
1977, Ngouabi is assassinated.
Just like that. Gone. And the mystery surrounding his death, it's still debated today. Was it a coup? A hit job by a foreign power?
It's crazy. And what really gets me about this video is they actually interview Ngouabi's son.
Oh, wow. I can't even imagine.
And you hear him talking about that day, the assassination, and it's just heartbreaking. This mix of grief, confusion, anger, it really drives home the human cost of all this political turmoil.
Because at the end of the day, history isn't just about dates and names in a textbook. It's about real people, real families, caught in the middle of these huge events.
Exactly. And this story, Ngouabi's story, it's a powerful reminder that there are always multiple sides, different perspectives. What might seem clear-cut, black and white, is often anything but.
For sure. And sometimes the most important thing is just to keep asking questions, to keep digging for the truth, even when it's messy and complicated.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And on that note, we're going to have to wrap things up. But hey, keep
Well,
that curiosity going, right? There are countless other stories out there, hidden in the margins of history, just waiting to be unearthed.